Hello, welcome to the JTM Community Podcast, where we are building a community that you can bank on. I'm your host, Jason Melvin. If you are listening or watching this on YouTube, you have no idea who our guest is today because he is not a familiar face to you all. I'm super excited. We'll get into that in just a moment. Of course, if you would like to touch base with me for advancement advising, you can do so through the website, as well as you can vote, send in your ideas, topics, even ideas as far as Q&A questions, that sort of thing. You can also join us on Facebook and join that group. That is where it's most easy to engage, to vote. It's one click to vote through the Facebook. You can send in your ideas and whatnot through there as well. Of course, the main site, j-tm.community/podcast. You can also check it out if you are looking for resources, whether that are national resources or local to the Mount Pleasant, Michigan area. There's a whole section there. And if you are just wanting to see some of our partners, you will see this particular gentleman added to that very, very soon, as he is also a part-time Twitch streamer. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Without any further ado, we are doing a guest choice topic today, and that is going to be on expectations. So with us, we have Mr. Levi Ebright, who is Tracy and my nephew. It's actually Tracy's nephew by proxy for myself. He's 23 years old. He had lived in Michigan for most of his life until he was 20, at which point he moved to Pennsylvania and has become an electrical apprentice. And as I had mentioned, is a part-time Twitch streamer. I believe Mondays at 6 is what I want to say.
5:30 most of the time. I try to make it 5:30, but it varies.
Mondays 5:30 at the tag Cheddarchug, just like it sounds. So if you like drinks and you like cheese, Cheddarchug.
Yeah. That's a joke.
That is a joke, but that really is your username. Is
oh yeah, absolutely.
When you think of that idea of expectations, what does that make you think of? What does that mean to you?
So when I hear expectations or like even specifically like what do you expect, I picture a bar, like a high jump bar, like for track and field.
Yep.
And so the bar is set where you should be according to whoever you're talking to or yourself even. And if you just get over the bar, you have met the expectation. But if you hit it and knock it off, obviously you've fallen short and it's not necessarily good.
Yep.
But if you jump wildly over it, it's noticeable. Like, okay, here's where the bar was and you were clear up here. So
you by far exceeded the expectation.
Right. Yes.
So you said something, and I agree with that. The metaphor pretty almost to the T. You had mentioned that an expectation is whether it's set by yourself or someone else. So if the expectation is set by somebody else, how do you know?
I actually have that as a point. It's it's very good, especially in like personal close relationships. I've found to open with a conversation and be like, hey, you don't just go, what do you expect of me? Because that seems rude. But like you talk about it, like what's going on? What do I do that you don't like? Or what do I do that you like? And what do you want to see me keep doing? Like what's going on? It's a conversation basically.
Kind of, if you know that it's either you're laying new ground, right? Or you notice that something isn't quite okay. It's almost a conversation of support of, hey, like what can I do to help? And through that dialogue, it's a gentle way to say, this is what that person needs from me, or what their hope or expectation is to be able to provide and go back and forth. That sounds really good in a healthy way, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes, whether we do it to ourselves, and a lot of us do, and I'm not saying we do it to ourselves all the time, but I would say there's probably not a single person that could listen or watch this that at no point in their life did they have an unhealthy expectation of themselves, whether
Right.
it is way too low or
Yeah.
way too high.
Hmm.
And can you think of a time, whether it is you setting that expectation or you felt somebody else set that expectation?
Yeah. I've actually got two points, and I'm that segued really cleanly. The first part was right towards like the middle to tail end of my time in high school.
Mhm.
I was not in a great place
Mhm.
with myself or with the general public, to the point where like I didn't want anyone to expect anything of me because I didn't want to expect anything of myself.
Mm.
And that was like super like like I remember telling somebody who I think it was one of my grandparents. I was like, just pretend I'm not here. Like I don't want to do anything.
What do you think was fueling that?
Oh, it was, looking back on it, I was very clearly like depressed. Like I hadn't had a healthy conversation of what should I be doing. It was just either do this or do that.
Mhm.
And then if I didn't, it was bad. And if I did, it was like, okay, cool. That's what you were supposed to do.
Mhm. Looking at it hindsight, it sounds like you have additional insight to it.
Oh yeah.
How did you navigate it in the moment? Because I mean, I was around for part of that and seeing that struggle.
Right. Um, I don't want to say I navigated it poorly, but it wasn't the best way or like the healthiest way. What I did was I played a lot of video games.
Mhm.
I still do that, but like now it's not because I'm trying to escape. It's more because it's fun to do.
It's a hobby and a part-time, hopefully at some point pays off
Right.
for sure.
Yeah.
Cheddarchug again for anyone who's listening.
Yeah. I surrounded myself with people who, I don't want to say also had low expectations, but like
Mm.
it felt like when I was around my group of friends, like I was enough. Like I didn't have to try to hit anybody's expectations. Which is good that I had a group of friends like that, but like at the same time, it wasn't encouraging growth in myself in any way.
Yeah, you can foster complacency that way for sure.
Right.
And for somebody who is depressed at the time, becoming
yeah.
complacent with depression, that's
Mhm.
dangerous.
Right.
When did you begin to notice, hey, like this isn't okay?
It was probably like week 2 of boot camp with the Navy.
Okay.
Like,
You mind sharing that story?
yeah. You want like the whole thing or just like that?
Just
window?
whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. So this is, if you don't know where to start, which I don't right now, you go back to the beginning of it.
Yes.
So,
Yep.
In high school, my best friend to this day still, I remember he came in and we were talking and he was super excited. He's like, I'm going to do the Navy. And I was like, that's cool. Like the Navy's awesome. And I was like that. I had always considered like the military as a valid path because both of my grandfathers on both sides of my family had been military.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay. And I think that was like the final push that I needed. Like, okay, this is what you can answer when people say, what are you going to do after high school? Well, I'm going to do the Navy because it was a very convenient thing to say. Like it's respectable and it gets people to stop asking.
And you knew somebody that was close to you who was also going to be going through it with you.
Right.
Mm.
And so I had enlisted and there was a whole lot of like prep stuff that the recruiters have you do. And I got shipped off. I ended up going about 2 weeks earlier than my friend. Like we didn't go in at the same time, which I don't want to say is the reason that I washed out, but I feel like I would have gotten at least a little farther.
Sure. It would have made some kind of difference.
Right.
You would add a supportive person there with you as well.
Yeah. And so I'm put into a group of like, I think all together with my division and the brother division, there was like 275 people. Most of us were like 18, 19, 20. We had a few outliers that were older than that. But I remember all of the instructors being very excited about that. They're like, you guys are perfect. Like we can make you do whatever we want and it's going to be easier for you. And in a sense it was, because like when somebody is very big and very in your face and intimidating, you do it. Like
Sure.
you don't get time to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was my underlying problem. Now I'm isolated and I'm intimidated. So at night, when I had time to think about stuff like this, it wore and it wore and it wore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was part of like a second wave of washouts. So like week 1, they didn't expect us. My division went from like half of that 275. I think it was like, it was weird. It was like 120 something in mine alone.
Mm-hmm.
We went down from that to like 70 people.
Oh, wow.
Which was expected.
Okay.
Week 2 runs around. So by this point, I've got my camo, I've got my Navy working uniform, I've got my dog tags. I'm kitted out except for dress uniform, and they call them peanut butters. It's like they're it's like a brown dress uniform. It's not usually worn, but it's like if you're working like the front of a ship, like the receiving end of a ship.
Okay.
I'm getting fitted for that. And I remember standing in line against this brick wall, and I'm just tapping my head against this brick wall, trying to like feel something. Like I'd shut down by this point. And I was like, what's going on here? Like this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And then the next like 2 days after that, I feel myself just going through the motions. Like I very clearly was not all there, which was bad because I wasn't completing the things that needed to be completed. And that was hurting everybody else, but it was hurting me specifically because it then fueled itself. Well,
Yep.
Now I'm not meeting this expectation that's supposed to be simple.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's bad. And now I feel worse. And so because I feel worse, I shut down, and now I'm not doing that again. And it just cycled.
Yep.
And so eventually I got up and I went to one of the instructors and I was like, hey man, I distinctly remember I used the actual like respectful request. I was like, recruit Ebright respectfully requesting to be transferred into separations. And the guy like closed the door to the office and he's like, what's going on, dude? And I was like, I can't do it. Like I straight up told him, I was like, I'm afraid that if I keep going, I'm going to hurt myself just to get a break, like so that I can take a day and recharge essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, all right. And it started the whole process of being separated. And that's really when I was like, okay, like in the time I definitely didn't, but after I got back from that, people have told me, they were like, that's not good that you were like that, but it's good that you could recognize
Mm-hmm.
when something was that bad.
Yep. It sounds like that moment or that experience became the catalyst of actually getting better.
Right. Yes, I would agree to that.
Which unfortunately, that almost all change is initially induced through difficulty, through challenge,
yeah.
through adversity, and yours was in a really, really big way. I
Right.
mean, when you went into that situation already not okay,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then you were put in that environment, I mean,
Mhm.
it would have been more surprising that you would get out of that okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So
Well,
it'd be
and that
like,
was
hey, I'm hella stressed and overwhelmed. Let me go do this thing that makes me even more stressed and overwhelmed. And
right.
let's see how that fucking goes.
Right. Well, and that's so I'm pretty sure it's the motto of every branch of the military's like induction and boot camp is we're going to pressure you until you either become strong like a diamond or you crack and you wash out.
Mm-hmm.
I just happened to crack, like,
Sure.
which understandable or not, that's what happened. Like it was one of the two results that was expected. So In a way, I kind of met the expectation.
You
But
did.
right,
Yeah, you absolutely did.
right,
It wasn't necessarily the expectation you might have been hoping for,
right, exactly.
but the reality is there was a healthy expectation through them that a lot of you simply aren't going to make it through this whole process,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And setting the stage of that in some way almost gives permission, right?
Right.
Because people are like, hey, like this is too hard, that I
Mhm.
can just essentially choose to bow out in my own way.
Right.
I really appreciate you sharing that, and it kind of comes back to that idea of expectation. When you went in, you were the only person that knew what you were dealing with to an intimate degree, right?
Right.
Nobody knows you better than you do.
Right.
What fueled that for you?
Um, it was a lot like the choice to go in, you mean?
That whole scenario, because you said initially it was to kind of get people off my back. It
Right.
was like an honorable, a commendable thing.
Yeah.
um
So
but
that
there's a
that
lot of options, right? There's an
right.
infinite amount of options. Was it just having is it okay if I say his name?
Yeah, go
Haven?
for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your best friend Haven, was it like that because he was going into that was just like the immediate thing, or was like what all went into that? Because it sounded like you
So
started to mold your own expectation, but you set yourself up for disaster.
right. So Haven coming and being excited about enlisting, I think was just the straw that broke the camel's back into pushing me that way.
Okay.
Not that I think he pushed me into it at all,
Yep.
because I 100% chose to do that myself.
His
But
excitement enticed you, it sounds
a
like.
little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Um, years previously, um, I kind of stewed with the idea of enlisting. Like I didn't know I had planned on Navy. I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do Navy. Um, my grandfather was in the Navy.
Mhm.
My other one was in the Air Force. I like the water. I was like, Navy, I'll be the term was a culinary specialist. I'll cook on the ship.
I remember
I'll
that. Yeah.
I'll be cool. I'll be serving people. It'll be good. Um, and that had just kind of brewed like through most of middle school and high school, and it was always something in the back of my mind. Like it's always because it's a no. I don't want to say it's a no skill job, but you can go in with nothing,
Mhm.
and when if you make it through, now you're part of it. Like they teach you everything you're gonna need to know.
Yep.
So my brain was stewing on that, and then Haven was like, I'm doing this thing. It's I don't think he said it was going to be cool, but he was excited about it. He's like, this is what I'm going to do.
Mhm.
And so I went and I talked to the recruiter and signed up myself, because I had already been thinking about it, and then here's my best friend going, yeah, like I'm going to do it. So
Yep. Almost felt
there I
like a
went.
no-brainer at the time.
Right.
Sure. When you think of expectations, and you said that idea started to kind of form since middle school, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of like an ongoing thought process over the year. So I'm gonna kind of take us way back, only to whatever degree that you feel relevant and comfortable with,
Okay.
is to talk about your situation, family dynamics, and
Hmm.
things of that regard. So to get a little bit of info for contextual speaking for folks listening, is Levi has two brothers. One you'll actually see, you may have seen his brother Lucas before or after this. I don't know when the episodes are all going to land.
Oh, is he going to do one?
He did he did 1/3 part of a featurette
Okay.
yesterday, actually, last night.
That's super cool.
Yeah. The surprisingly vulnerable as well. So
Right.
super excited for that to go out. So Levi's other brother Lane, much younger. So I think there's Lane's 13 now. Luke is 20 or will be 20.
He will be 20 in March, because I just turned 23.
So there's a bit of an age gap.
Or no, he might be turning 21. He's only 2 years younger than me.
He's turning 21.
Yeah, that's gonna be bad.
Frightening.
I'm not gonna be bad, but frightening. Yeah.
We just give him shit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So there's a pretty big age jump between Levi, Lucas, and then Lane.
Lane.
Lane also had a lot of health concerns to the point. Now, obviously, he's okay. I mean, he has a couple of things and immunity and whatnot. But for just to put it into context for like a visual for folks, is Lane is not verbal for the most part. Is not verbal. He communicates
not
through
words.
signs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard him say "mom" is all I've heard. He struggles with, I would say, severe ADHD.
Yes.
Right? And he's a teenager, so he's also a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's stronger than he thinks he is.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. So he has his own struggles for sure. More independent now than before, because
miles of difference.
And I know if we rewind the clock, and I didn't know you in middle school, obviously. Right. What I do know from my experience as you guys and your grandparents helped care for him as well. Yeah. So when you take, I believe it's you, your mom, Lucas, and Lane, at least since I've known you, in the home. I don't know like when that all had changed. What did that look like, and what were the expectations? Because you're trying to be a son, a brother, a student,
right,
a grandson, like trying to do all of this.
Yeah. So initially, I was kind of like when Lane was born. I think I was like 7 years old, going on 8 because he was born in November. But I was like young enough.
Is there 10 years between? He's 13. Yeah, 10 years.
Is there really? Wow.
I mean, my math could be wrong.
No, he was born in 07 and I was 99.
So 8 years.
That's like 8 years.
8 years. Yeah.
So I was like young. Like at this point, my parents were still together. Lane had, when he was first born, there was a slew of health issues. Like the first year, I say it all the time. I don't know exactly how long he spent in the University of Michigan hospital, but he was, I say he was there for the first year of his life. Like it was a long time. As a child, I didn't really feel the expectations of like weight, I should say. I didn't really feel them at the time because I would stay with my grandparents while my parents were down in Ann Arbor, and things just kind of moved. Like this was just a new dynamic. Like, okay, my parents came, like one of my parents is here for this day, and this day, and the other one is in Ann Arbor, and then they'd swap. Okay. They wouldn't usually swap, but they like my dad had to work. So
it was a whole new dynamic. Right. Just Lane being in the hospital was kind of like the new norm.
Right.
Okay.
And so at that point, the expectation was kind of just like, this is very obviously important. Like even as a child, I'm like, okay, this is a hospital that's far away. He's in basically like an ICU like tub. And so my brain is like, yeah, okay, this is important. Just do what you're doing to the point where you don't need help with that. So that way you can like, this can be the focus, because my stuff, while is in hindsight, yes, it's important that I get attention and help with that stuff. But like at the time, I'm just like, this is a very present problem.
Yeah.
Like, and how do I deal with that? I'm just a kid. So I'm just going to do what I normally do, but over here, like out of the way. Don't inhibit at all, or try not to.
So even at that age, you remove yourself as like a potential obstacle to Lane's care.
I think that's what happened. This has been a long time.
A long time. Yeah.
A long time for me. I know people who are going to be like, that time span was nothing. It was a blink of an eye. It felt like a long time. I was a small child.
It was literally, with you being the person we're talking about, it was half a lifetime ago.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a long time.
Yeah. And so, yeah, looking back on it, I was just trying to continue things as normally as I could do, but like, once again, out of the way. Like, I didn't want to be under anyone's feet when my brother very clearly needs like physical help.
The knowing that was kind of a self-induced expectation to make things easier for folks, to not be in the way, right? Was that something that you just felt, or do you feel that was in some way like communicated to you?
I think that's just something that I felt. Like, I can't remember any time where I was like, oh, they said this, so I should just move. I shouldn't be here because I'm in the way. I don't remember any of that. I do think that feeling that I had got on myself of just get out of the way set the stage for later in like middle and high school, where I thought just not being in the way was good enough. So just pretend I'm not here. If I'm not in your way, cool, do whatever you want. Like,
yep. We're almost the idea of having a low expectation also makes you invisible, which is really easy to not be a focal point, good or bad, right? So it's not causing stress or anything to anyone. At the same time, that's a double-edged sword, right? Because it also would inhibit your own growth or your own ambitions.
That's in those pretty much what it did.
When do you feel like it changed the other way? You kind of like walked us through your military experience, then you get home and you're here for not too long of a time, if I remember correct.
Right.
It'd be a couple or a few months. Maybe.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure it was less than a year.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, almost certain.
So I get home, and while I was away, my mom took on an enormous project. Like, she redid her whole house. It looks awesome. Like, they did a good job. Like, and it was a village effort. Like, my grandparents and my Aunt Tracy, everyone was around. They were helping. I remember getting pictures in boot camp that they were doing this. I get back. It's not quite done yet. But I'm told I have a room in the basement. That's awesome to me. Like, I had, up until this point, I had never not had to share a bedroom space. So I kind of get into that. And for a while, I pretended that I was still in the Navy. Like, I would set an alarm for the ass crack of dawn and then do nothing all day, and go to bed. I tried to keep some form of structure because I wasn't in a good place, and I had the vague notion that was going to help. And then my mom was like, okay, you have to do something. Like, and at the time it kind of hurt because I was still sore. Like, it was like she picked a scab. Looking back on it, that's totally reasonable. Like, I wasn't doing anything. Like, I would hang around the house, or I would go and I would drive into town, and I would come back and I wouldn't do anything. So my grandfather is a farmer, and he has friends who are also farmers. It's not like a sharecropping thing like you'd learn about in history class, but it's like they use each other's tools. Like, they help each other farm.
Support each other's farm, yep.
Right. So I talked to him. I'm like, hey, I have to do something. Can you talk to your friend and see if there's any work that needs to be done around this shop? I'll sweep it out. I'll clean stuff out, whatever I got to do. I didn't say it, but like in my head, it's like whatever I got to do to get my mom off my back.
So it's kind of the feeling that you had for the military. This is just 2.0.
Right. Okay. It was just do something so that you can do what you want and not have to get hassled for it. And so I work on this farm for a while, and it's not great. I mean, I had fun doing it, kind of, but it was very like log your own hours. You talk to the guy when you feel like you need to get paid. And you just, when you show up, you just did whatever somebody told you to do, which was fine because I liked the guys that I was working with, but it wasn't like, not that farming is not a valid career path, but it wasn't for me. Like, I was just like, this isn't, I don't want to do this forever.
Yep.
Like, as soon as I can get something better, I want to do something else.
You had that expectation of yourself that,
Right.
hey, like this is what I'm doing for now, but this is not where I retire.
Right. Yeah. I also missed a stint somewhere between that point and getting home. I had gotten a job at Subway that didn't last long. Like, it was
I remember
fine.
that. Yeah, I do remember that.
It was fine, but like, I didn't like, it was the farm. I don't want to do this. So I'm just doing this so that I can have some pocket change and be alive, basically. Like, be a semi-functional member of society, contribute something.
Your expectation almost in that moment was just survival.
Right. Yeah. It was survival mode. Like, I can't go anywhere because I don't have gas. Well, I don't have gas because I don't have money. Well, I don't have money because I don't have a job. Well, I guess I got to get a job.
Process of elimination.
Yeah. And so the farm was fine. It was good. I distinctly remember the beginning of the end of that job was, I had gone home one day after work and I was talking to my grandfather about it, who at the time was just at the beginning of, I don't want to say the very beginning, but he was still in the early stages of some health issues. So he wasn't there.
Sick.
Like, yeah, he wasn't farming like he had done for years and years.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about it and he goes, yeah, tomorrow Steve is probably going to have you run like a big truck or this tractor to harvest or to like start the harvest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my brain went, nope, we're not doing that. And I didn't go in. I pulled a dick move. I didn't call anybody. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just didn't go into work that next day. And I got back around the time that I would usually get back from work. And I got to talking with my grandfather, and it became very clear very fast that I had not met an expectation with him. I had disappointed him. I don't want to say like immensely, but what I had done had hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, we walked through it and he was like, okay, if that's how it's going to be, you basically just told my friend to go fuck himself.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon my language. I don't know if that's.
I've already swore in this podcast, so
okay.
This one's already not child friendly.
Right. So he goes, okay, I understand where you're coming from, or at least I think he thought he did. Mm-hmm. And he was like, what is concerning me is that I don't want this to damage my relationship with my friend, and I don't want this to damage your relationship with my friend, because I've been working for this guy for a while. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I apologized and I told him why I had done what I did. And he was like, yeah, I get it. Like it all ended smoother than how I set it up to be. Mm-hmm. But that was the beginning of the end. I think I worked there for like 2 or maybe 3 weeks after that. And I was done. Mm-hmm. And it was around that time that my mom was kind of picking up that it was stagnant again. Like, I was doing it, I was going through the motions, and it was complacent. Mm-hmm. And so she said, okay, I remember coming home to a contract essentially. And it was basically like, you're going to have to start paying rent on this, this, and this if you want to live here. And that was a very large difference in the expectations that she had and that I had, mm-hmm. which is fair. Like, that is a totally reasonable thing to expect of a grown adult, that like your child who's still living with you as an adult.
Sure.
But at the time, my brain just was raw still, and it went, nope, we're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And like in my brain, I processed it as, I can expect you to be my mother, or I can expect you to be my landlord. I can't come to grips with it being both.
Yep.
So
Our relationship is not going to be contractual like that.
Right.
That just
it would have killed it.
Well. Yeah.
Right. If I was going to, it didn't sit well. If I was going to be doing this, you don't get to be my mom anymore. And I don't want that. I want you to be my mom. So what
a beautiful opportunity. And I'm sure it didn't feel so in the moment that
I was crying that day. I 100% broke down. I was in a bad way.
Fair. Yeah. Where there was an opportunity to be that transparent of expectations, where she had like, these are literally your expectations,
right?
And your response to that is, these are my expectations. These things don't
add up at all.
Yep. Right. So there's going to have to be a shift.
Right. So initially, Haven is still, I think he was at A school. So it's like boot camp, A school, deployment. So he's like right in between being deployed and having just gone in. And his dad had a house and he had empty rooms because he's got kids and Haven isn't using it. And so I had contacted him. I'm like, hey, can I crash at your place for a while? Like, I don't expect it to be permanent, but I need to escape. I just needed to be not where I was at the moment. And he had said, yeah, cool. And then the end result was my grandparents got involved and were like, you can stay here. Like, it's going to be what it is. And I said, okay. And I didn't stay there for long. It was only a couple weeks after that.
Yeah.
It was maybe a month and a half. It was not long that I stayed there, I don't think. And at one point, my grandmother had said, when your mom was expecting this of you, it wasn't because she didn't want you to be there. She told me that she was going to take all the money that you were giving her and put it in a nest egg for you. And my immediate response, because I'm still raw about the whole thing, is, well, then why didn't she say that? Like,
if she did, you were not in the place where you could have heard it.
Right. I 100% agree with that. It probably would not have made a difference, but that me being angry and upset and hurt at the time was like, well, then why wasn't that told to me? And not long after I moved in with my grandparents, we drove to Tennessee, I believe, because barring recent years, my grandmother and her siblings, there's a lot of them, they all try to get together to see each other at least once a year. During that visit, my uncle, who lives in Pennsylvania, had jokingly said, I say joking, he's hard to read when he's trying to be funny.
It's like a serious joke.
Yeah. So he goes, when are you going to come out and let me teach you how to do electrical work? And me, at a low point, going, I don't want to like burden my grandparents with me, goes, when will you take me? And he goes, oh, okay. Well, I gotta iron some stuff out. I'll get back to you. And so that fall, we had gotten together in the summer, and then that fall I ended up moving out here to Pennsylvania. He gave me a room to sleep in, he gave me a job, and he ultimately helped buy my car. And so it was like that transitioned. I would say the move itself, coming out here, kind of helped springboard me into like having a very low bar for myself to like, okay, I'm out here. My usual safety net of like my grandparents and my mom and my brothers and my friends are a long ways away. So it was a very similar experience to joining the military, but in a better way. So like, instead of being pressured and cracking, it was less pressure and I didn't crack, and I met the expectations of being a functional person. Sure.
It really sounds like, and I mean, Tracy and I talk about it every once in a while, if I'm being honest, because you have grown.
Oh yeah.
To such a degree, I can feel it right now as I'm about to say this, just like this sense of overwhelming pride, and I don't mean that in like a prideful way.
No, yeah, but like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Of acknowledging what you've done is what I really hear you saying is that by making that transition and moving, you got to a degree, hit the reset button. You started off with
Yes.
basic needs met. That wasn't a concern. You had immediate direction. These are the expectations, right? You're going
Yep.
to learn this and you're going to do these things.
Right.
At which point I know that when you have direction, you know how to perform, right?
Right.
Where it's the pressure of figuring things out is gone. And if I
Yes.
understand all of your examples so far, is that's what Haven provided, right? He
Right.
provided direction, and then
Yep.
you got out of that, and then Subway provided direction, you got out of that, and then the farm provided direction,
Yeah.
right? So you would grab onto a thing, that thing would maintain for a time, right?
Right.
But now you move out there, and in large part, your safety net is gone. I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
I'm going to, because I want to imply something bad. And correct me
Okay.
if this is bullshit.
Okay.
Your crutches were gone. So the things that would enable you to do what you've done before weren't there.
Yes.
So now it was only up to Levi.
Right. I will agree with that statement. It, like you said, it implies it's bad, but like crutches are meant to help you.
Yep.
But
for a time,
right? But if you're walking around on crutches with 2 good legs, like
yes. And if you're having to use crutches for 10 years, like there's probably a little more wrong than a broken leg at the time.
Right. Yeah, there's
the crutches imply in almost all cases that this is a temporary usage to get you to a better place.
Right.
So you get there, you begin to kind of discover yourself a little bit. It actually didn't take you that long to start to kind of figure things out and do things on your own. And I know there was some family pressure. To what degree, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I only know this because of the story you told me of how you and your significant other met, which you got pushed into engaging at I can't remember the name of the place.
It was a game shop.
Yep. What's it called?
The game shop?
Yeah.
Dawn Gaming.
Dawn Gaming. For like I think it was a magic contest.
Yeah.
Right? Or tournament.
Yeah. So what had happened was I had basically just been bumming around my aunt and uncle's house I got out in October. So until like my birthday, until January. From October to January, I just kind of was around. Like I went to work with my uncle because I didn't have a car at the time. So he drove us to work, and then we'd work and we'd drive back, and then I would play video games because that was relaxing. I was like, okay, I did a full day's work. I can relax a little bit.
Yep, absolutely.
And at one point my aunt goes, well, like, what do you like to do? And I was like, well, I play video games. You noticed that. But I play card games too. And she goes, oh, that's neat. And she took that information she was an ace in like positive reinforcing hobbies. Mm-hmm. So for my birthday, she paid the entry fee to like a little magic tournament at the local game shop. Mm-hmm. It's January and it was a cold year, so like nobody showed up. There was like 5 of us in the shop, including the owner, and 2 of them ended up being very close friends to me later on. Mm-hmm. One of them introduced me to my significant other, Mallory, and that was because my aunt was like, I'm going to take information, retain it, and act upon it later because he's just in my house all the time. I don't know if that was the reason why, but I like to think that was how it was.
Again, she gave you direction. Here's the thing, here you go.
Yeah.
At what point did things change for you where your own self-expectation began to grow, where you began to view yourself as, hey, like I require more of me, I can do more?
Right. Probably that same day that I went to that magic shop. Because once again, I like to think that it was like, I gotta get him out of the house for a little bit. So it was like, I get there, there's like nobody there. I'm like, well, there's very limited options as to who to engage with. Mm-hmm. So I start talking to these people, Sean and Tiffany, and we have very similar interests. Like all three of us are very into Star Wars. We like role-playing tabletop games, and we enjoy, like Sean not so much, but we enjoy Magic the Gathering, the card game. And we're interacting, and Sean is taking the lead. Like he's a very extroverted person. You've met him.
Yeah. And a hell of a cook.
Yes, and a hell of a cook. And so we're having this big long conversation, and we're not playing Magic anymore, and it's time to go home. And my brain goes, this is going to be weird. Ask him for his phone number. like,
which is way out of character for you.
Oh, absolutely. But my brain was going, you need to get out more. Like you like at the time I felt pushed, like you're being pushed to interact with people. That's not going to happen unless you walk into that, like do something about it. Mm-hmm. And then that blossomed into a friendship. And like I was telling you before we started, I'm over there like 3 or 4 times a week. Mm-hmm. And so that really kind of introduced me to a group of friends that I have out here. That's a different kind of support than familial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I really hear you saying, the moral of that story of kind of from middle school leading all the way up to where we are now, is that it's very helpful for people to help give you direction. But at the end of the day, things only really changed when you took action. Right. So as you think about your future, which I'm not even going to take a stab at what that's going to look like. I'm still not a millionaire, so obviously my ability to predict futures is terrible.
Right. Yeah.
So as you think of your future and that idea of expectations, what is that expectation for yourself? Where do you want to be? Where do you expect yourself to be? Not necessarily within a timeline.
Right. But... yeah. So vague future. I would like to have streaming become my main source of income. Like right now, that's what I want to do. That's how I want it to go. I would like to own a house at some point in the future, whether it be here or in Michigan. It'll probably end up being out here, but I would like to get married and have a family. Like that just the vague, like obviously we don't have a timeline for that, but and that, so I just said that, and that's one of my talking points is me and Mallory. I don't want to say like super often, but we have had multiple conversations of like, we're going to get married, right? Like, yes, of course, like, because that's my end goal at this point for relationships, and that's her end goal at this point for relationships. So it's like, if we weren't on the same page there, maybe break it off, like before we get super involved and have to deal with the fact that we're not on the same page about this.
You both communicated what you expect for the future.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You didn't mention kids though.
Right. And so I was getting to that.
Okay. So like, I don't know if that's intentional.
Very, very similar conversation has happened on the topic of children. We would both like children. Mm-hmm. The number, we aren't on like the exact same page. There's some overlap, but we both agree that it's not now. Like this is going to be later. Like preferably if we have a bigger house, like the house that we live in now. I love it. I love our tiny house. It's small, like smaller than the house that I grew up in, which is, I mean, the listeners don't know, but it was very small.
It's not a mansion by any means.
Right. So that's like, we communicated that it's I expect us to have a family at some point. I also expect that point to be not now. Like that's not something that we should be pursuing in the moment right now.
It really sounds like the idea of what you want and the expectations are they align with each other in the sense of, hey, I'm doing the things right now to develop and create a life that is conducive to having the family we want to create. So taking it a step at a time. So working to have an income, develop that expertise and experience at the same time. I know that you're also working on your streaming service and creating and developing that. Again, Cheddarchug, if you're looking for them.
Wow, you have plugged my channel way more than I have ever plugged my channel.
Hey, I'm just trying to help somebody out.
No, I love it. No, keep doing it. Like, by all means.
So it's not that I want to do these things and I expect these things, but I have these expectations, and here's the work. Here are the actions that I'm taking to make those things become a reality, which I think, again, really is the kind of moral of this story, is that if whether there's self-expectations or expectations from someone else on us or us to them, is one, we have to communicate that. We have to be honest, even if it doesn't feel good, like you had mentioned with your mom and your expectations at that time, right? But the important thing is they have to be addressed. Otherwise, they can't be adjusted, and we don't know what actions to take. And when you had direction and when you chose to take action, you became a better person for it. You became a better a man. I've told this to Tracy about Tracy, which listeners know Tracy is my better half. If you could see you through my eyes, you would see yourself a whole lot differently. And I don't mean like literally.
No, I understand what you mean. Like, wow, my nose is a lot bigger than I thought it was. Not like that. I get you.
The overwhelming sense of, this is somebody who is so intelligent, has a wonderful sense of humor, has a bleeding heart, but shits on himself on the daily. Right. And I'm not speaking now as much as I can speak from the time before, who is capable of so much, but has set the bar so low for himself. And when you left, everyone was fucking hella nervous, right?
Oh yeah,
hella nervous, but also so hopeful. And through conversations, and I know early on you and your aunt would have conversations, and she would check up on you and whatnot. And over time, in the stories, when you would take action and put yourself out there a little bit. I can't tell you how excited she was. I mean, she still is. So I don't think there's been a Monday that's gone by, or not just Mondays, but also when you have special streams, right? That I'll hear her wherever she is in the house. She'll have it going on her phone, where she's just like hella excited about what you're doing and the life that you're trying to create. So it's so awesome to hear the expectations you have for yourself, for your relationship, for your life moving forward. But more importantly, it's exciting to hear how you're taking action with those things. Levi, I can't say thank you enough. I truly appreciate you popping on. I was super excited to chat this evening.
Me too.
Any last thoughts or plugs for yourself or anyone else before we head off?
No plugs. You've covered that, which I appreciate, because to me, when I plug myself, it sounds selfish. Like, yeah, look at this thing that I'm doing. But when you say it, it's like, yeah, cool. People know.
See the difference of expectation. You shit on yourself for doing the very thing that I did with you.
Well, that was why I wanted to be on here, not to shit on myself, obviously, but like, when I had texted you last week, it was like, how I sent in the message that I had typed up these big, long, like paragraph text messages just to delete them. And I settled on, can I be on your podcast? Because in the moment, I'm like, I don't want to like butt in on your thing. Like, if you had been like, can I be on your stream? I'd have been like, well, maybe let's make some time for that. Like maybe later. But it was taking action and
Yep.
setting an expectation for myself. I mean, I appreciate that you let me do that. Like that's thanks for
Of
having me
course,
on.
yeah,
I
without
totally, and you took my idea, by the way, and ran with it. I was like, expectations. You're like, we're doing that.
anytime somebody, and this goes for anyone who has a passion or an interest to talk about a thing, so the way this is all designed is I try to get feedback, and that's what creates like the topical ideas.
Right.
But anytime somebody has like, hey, I would like to talk about this thing, my answer to that will always be yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Because that tells me it's close to home,
Right.
and that person can really truly speak on that from the heart. So
Yeah.
I didn't know what today was going to be, and
I didn't
our
either.
conversation. I'm very grateful that we had it for sure. Again, if anyone wants to check out Levi's stream Mondays 5:30 Cheddarchug, check him out. It's pretty entertaining. I will give a mild, I'm going to increase it to a moderate warning that
Yes.
the language is almost always colorful.
Yes.
In the sense of not kid friendly.
I have it set up and it should do this. I haven't checked on other profiles in a while, but whenever you come to my Twitch channel, it should give you a warning that I have set this up as this content is for a mature audience. Like,
yep.
I believe Twitch says 18 years or older. I'm going to say it's mature. Like, if you're a kid, have your parent make the judgment call. If you're a parent, make the judgment call for your kid. But otherwise, that's up to you.
Or if you're a parent or not a parent or an adult,
right,
you can just do your thing. It's not just designed for kids, right?
No, yeah, absolutely.
I'm almost 40 and I watch it and game and whatnot. So again, Levi, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and checking us out. Of course, if you want to touch base with me for advancement advisement, you can do so through the main site. You can also submit your votes through there. You can send in your ideas, your feedback, your questions. That's at j-tm.community/podcast, or more easily, just join our Facebook. You'll get immediate notifications, updates. Super easy to engage in our community, super easy to vote, super easy to give feedback. And last but not least, our TikTok, which you'll see all of the links for all of our social medias on the top right of the site. The TikToks aren't necessarily about the videos that we put out, though I will say there's some good ones there. Most importantly, I would argue that it's the liked sections. It has wonderful videos from amazing content creators on emotions, on humility, on being a human, on motivation, on inspiration. And I try to throw tinges of humor in there because that is really important to me as well. Again, thank you so much. And thank you for being part of a community where you belong.